Welcome, adventurers, to the second release notes for ClassFinder2e.com. This is the second release, so thank you to everyone who has left comments. Those have gone into this release, and I've got a few pretty minor things and one pretty big new item to talk about. So let's dive in here. Just to talk about my planned schedule and approach to ClassFinder 2e, I am now going to enter the sort of progressive enhancements phase of the project. I am going to try to put out new features about once a month, and I'm going to sort of follow this cadence of releasing a video like this to discuss what is now live, to ask questions, feedback on potential new features, and sort of collect that feedback for about 2 weeks. Leave comments on this video about things that you would like to see, about new features, about things that I specifically have questions on in particular, because that's what I'm thinking about for the next release. So about 2 weeks to collect feedback and kind of formulate ideas, about a week to get around to making the changes, and then about a week of testing and then repeat. On the note of testing, I'll say this a few times, but if you would like to join the channel membership, I am now releasing the beta releases to members early. There is a separate beta link with a login, and you can go and actually see and help test the new features before they are live. And then, as always, the update priorities are going to be any site-breaking bugs, any inaccuracies, contested inaccuracies, minor enhancements, and then new feature requests, which I will be prioritizing by the perceived popularity and impact on the product, and also by effort and availability. Just what can I realistically get done in, by the next release. Other considerations, this does come up, is the possibility of regression issues and then also ongoing maintenance. This is a big one for me. For every new feature you introduce, there are new things you have to take care of when there's remasters or other changes. So I'm keeping that in mind, trying to make this something I can manage. Okay, so what is in this release? Bugs, none. There was nothing reported since the last release. So hooray, let me know if there is something that prevents you from actually using the site, but I think as of now, we're good. As far as inaccuracies, this is things that are just objectively wrong, no question about it. Someone did point out that I had the text level spells a few times, and that is of course now called like a rank of spell, not a level spell. So I have changed this to be spells from spell slots, wherever that came up. I think it was like in 5 or so different tooltips. So thank you for pointing that out. And if you find any more things where I'm using pre-remaster language or completely misstating something, like saying the monk can use charisma as a key ability, for example, and that's just flat out wrong, let me know, and that will always be the highest priority to fix. On to contested inaccuracies. These are things mostly just about the different stats scores, and here are some changes that I did make. I have moved the Animist now to the max 5 of 5 difficulty because there were quite a lot of people who said that it should be there. I did move the Cleric up to a 3 from a 2 for support because a lot of people mentioned that. Bane and Bless, classic support spells, as well as many others really. I moved the Monk up to 2 in difficulty. It was the minimum of 1. It is a good point that with Flurry of Blows, you often find yourself wondering what to do with a third action. So it is a little bit more complicated than your basic fighter, especially, considering a lot of fighter builds tend to use a 2-action activity like Vicious Swing. So a lot of fighter gameplay can be boiled down to move, Vicious Swing, move away. Like something like that. Like that, you can just do that on repeat. So that's as simple as it can get. So it's fair. Monk should be 2. And then I also increased the Animist healing to 3 because a lot of people were saying that the Animist should be better at healing. Now, some people said 5. I disagree because not every Animist is going to heal or be capable of healing. So it really should not be a full 5 at that point. Compared to something like the Cleric that is just coming with heal spells. That's a pretty obvious 5 to me. As far as things that are still under consideration, The swashbuckler. There's a lot of talk both ways about what the support rating should be. I have it as a 2 right now. I think I would be willing to go up to a 3. People have mentioned things like the one for all. Also, the fact that, the reason I have it as a 2 right now is that a lot of the swashbuckler styles do use debuffing actions in order to gain panache. So if debuffing is like just part of your core character and you're going to be doing it all of the time, maybe you should be a 3 for support. But then again, you aren't by default offering support to the rest of your team. You are not by default offering any buffs to your team, for example. Whereas, something like the Alchemist has so many buffing and debuffing options. And of course, the Bard is just, extreme buffing with being charisma based and being able to debuff. And the Witch is like, sustained debuffs and buffs. So I'd be willing to go to a 3, but I didn't do that right now because there is still a lot of discussion on this one. So let's continue to hash it out. Leave a comment letting me know if you think the swashbuckler should be a 2 or 3 for support. I think it's going to be one of those two. I can't see it being a 1. I can't really see it being a 4 either. And then I have the Druid as a 4 for healing right now. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check. So I'll just show you the new feature right away, the 2-way sorting. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, I have the Druid as a 4 for healing. And that is also up to debate. Some people are saying more, some people are saying less. I feel pretty good about it because the primal spell list does have heal in it. You are wisdom based, so chances are you are going to be trained in medicine. The natural healing, what is that? Is that the feat? Someone leave it. I should have looked that up. I think natural medicine is the name of the feat, right? That you don't necessarily have to take, but you probably will take, so you'll be even better at healing, at least while out in nature. There's, of course, the Cornucopia spell, and you do have access to Rousing Splash. All in all, that feels like a lot of healing to me. Okay, on to minor enhancements. These are things that I kind of define a minor enhancement as something that would take like, less than 2 hours, let's say, to code. That is a change. And there are none. There's nothing super minor in this release. On to the new feature requests and major enhancements. The 2-way slider is done. Let's take a look at that. So you can now filter down multiple ranges of min and max for the various stats. So if you have, pretty narrow criteria on what you want to see here, you can do that. If you're like, I specifically want to play a very medium difficulty class, you can narrow that down to this is just 2s and 3s. You can also just say, I want to be slightly even easier and just do the 2s, for example. So that is the big change in this release. That was the by far most requested feature from pretty much since the start of ClassFinder. So I'm pretty happy to have that one done. I think it does make a pretty big improvement to the site overall, and I hope you enjoyed. On to upcoming things that we need to talk about for the next release. These next two, add a skills as a stat and add social as a stat. We're definitely going to do this, and we will talk about this more, but I have set up 2 Google Forms, one for skills/exploration. I'm combining into one, and then, social/exploration, I'm combining into one, and then skills as a stat in its own. And there's going to be the ability to rank 0 through 5 for every single class, as well as leave a comment for every single class. And I will have those links in the description of this video, so please go fill those out, and we can use community rankings for these 2 new stats. So those are probably going to go, I think I'm going to always keep difficulty as the very last item here, but we will add 2 more for exploration and 1 for skills. Now, they're kind of similar and they're a little bit overlap, but I feel pretty good about having social slash exploration. That's hard to say. Social slash exploration, which is face, basically, your charisma, your intimidation, your diplomacy, and then also those skills that are all in support of face abilities and investigations, hobnobbing, gathering information, making friends, making allies, coercing enemies, intimidating people, figuring out mysteries, all of those kinds of things I am considering to be the social and exploration. And then the skills stat, which will be separate, is more about your overall skill training, skill usage, skill feats, those kinds of things. So there will be 2 Google Forms for those, which we'll talk about in a little bit more in the next slide. And then as far as other things go here, subclasses. I kind of now have an idea how I would like to do this. I'm thinking sort of a toggle, an additional toggle between just classes, which is the current view, and include subclasses. And I would have a card for every single subclass option. So rather than saying alchemist, you would see alchemist dash chirurgeon, alchemist dash bomber, for example. And I would have the stats specific to that subclass. Now, I think that'll work, but as I said in my last video, that is going to take a long time, mostly due to all of the details and all of the individual stats to set on that. I mean, it is, and then also I still don't fully know what I would do with classes that don't have a subclass. What do you do with fighter? What I'm kind of thinking is just sort of making up subclasses in a way, just saying like fighter with ranged feats, fighter with melee feats, fighter with defensive feats, something like that, and just listing like what I consider those feats to be. Same with like the exemplar, to say like, exemplar with melee feats, exemplar with ranged feats, exemplar with support feats, to let you know what the range of that could actually be. So I think I know what I want to do there, but I don't think I'm going to do it anytime too soon, because we are talking about, well over 100 entries to figure out and include and, get all the details right and explanations and look up feats. Like, it's a pretty big project to do that. As far as other things, this was mentioned last time, but prepared versus spontaneous filter, spell tradition filters. This might be something I work on in the next release. I'm kind of thinking, it's going to be more filters like this, where you've got key ability. I would just have a, under spellcasters here, I would make another kind of set of these little pills, maybe some slightly different text or color or something to let you know whether it's divine, primal, or if it's like the witch, all of the above. And then in a filter exactly like this, where you select the drop down, and if there happens to be, let me find one that's like, it could be an either or. So if you were to interact with the spell tradition filter for, pick any option, you would get the witch no matter what. But if you went, arcane, you're going to get the wizard as well, things like that. And then the thing that came up also was stats as community votes rather than one person's opinion. So let's talk about all of that again. Just a reminder, I have this ongoing class ranking project. I will also link to that. And I think that takes us to what you can do to help this out. Vote on the 2 Google Forms and the 1 rank choice class ranking that I have. So vote on social exploration, on skills, and make sure you vote on the class ranking and popularity if you haven't done so already. Those 3 will be determined by community consensus and not just what I have determined. So the more people we get voting on those things, the more accurate, the more helpful it is going to be. And then also, again, if you disagree with any of the stats that I have in the current build, leave a comment. We will continue to update stats as we go along, especially if a lot of people are in agreement that one of the stats is not what they would like to see. As far as other things you can do to help out, I think I mentioned this already, but join the membership program to help me test beta features. That way I get a few people looking at the new features, letting me know if there's any major bugs before it's released to full production, letting me know if any of the changes aren't working out as expected, or if there's just anything that we can do before it goes into general availability. It also just helps out the channel quite a lot. I am definitely slowing down on my normal video schedule just by a bit in order to work on these kinds of things, so that helps me keep going. You can also leave a super thanks to support the channel. I don't think many people use that YouTube feature, but it's like a good way to donate just a small little bit, especially because I don't know if you've noticed, but I do have ads on ClassFinder2e.com. I know sometimes they're a bit intrusive and annoying on mobile, but you know, it's not free to run. It's not expensive, but it's not free to run the site. So I just wanted to recoup some of that. And right now I'm in ad jail, apparently. I clicked on one of my own ads because it was actually something, it was a Lego something. And I was like, okay, I want to look at that. And apparently that's a no-no. If you click on an ad on a site that you own, you get put in Google AdSense jail. So I'm not earning any ad money on ClassFinder 2e for the next month at least. So if you want to, join membership or give a super thanks for a little donation, that would be appreciated. That is all. Hopefully I get to continue at this like once a month schedule with new features, fixes, lots of exciting changes to come. Thanks for all the support, adventurers, and I will catch you next time.